The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Wednesday and we are so thrilled because we have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh with us for Ask Dr. Doreen. And then after that, we will have a special episode of Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will join me. It is a rerun of a show that we aired a couple of months ago with an incredible singer that I know that you guys will enjoy. But first, we are going to be asking questions of Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, your questions. So Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can interact with us and some of the different ways that you can be watching the show. So I'll remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's a lot of different things to do. I want to encourage you to check out the blog. I also want to encourage you to sign up for the newsletter. We've got some really exciting things that are going to be coming to you if you sign up for the newsletter. Some discounts on some things that you really want to be able to do. So please sign up for that newsletter and share it with other people. I'll also remind you that you can watch the live show there or recently recorded shows. You can also click on the playlist and cycle through and see all the different things that you'd like to see. To the side there are a series of white boxes. You can put your cursor in the one that says your question, start typing, hit enter, and that will send your question to us in almost real time. There's about a 2-minute lag. So make sure if you want to ask a question that you start early and ask your question. You can even ask questions of Dr. Granpeesheh days in advance, and we keep the questions logged waiting for her when she's here in the studio. So with having said all of that, we hope that you will participate with us and that you will tell others to come and participate with us as well. And now it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're so thrilled to welcome back Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Wonderful to have you here in your purple. We got the memo
today, yeah.
We got the memo. That happens frequently. That for some reason it's like the Vulcan mind meld. I'll be wearing the same color as the guest.
That's true.
I don't know how that happens, but we're thrilled to have Dr. Granpeesheh here with us. She is an expert in the field of autism, and as I always say, a visionary in this field. Truly a brilliant mind that we enjoy getting to hear your thoughts on so many different things. We like to remind everybody at the start of the show that no one, including Dr. Granpeesheh, can give child-specific advice.
Right.
It just isn't possible in this format. We can't get enough information, although we love it when you send really specific information. That helps to give more information, and Dr. Granpeesheh can let you know some things that are available and some questions you might be asking, resources.
Right, exactly.
It's very helpful.
Yeah, we hope that we're helping with these resources. We just don't really want you to take our thoughts or our suggestions as therapeutic intervention or something like that.
Absolutely. But having said that, there are so many things that you guys write in that it's a wonderful learning experience for all of us to hear the questions that you're asking and to hear the different things that Dr. Granpeesheh has to say about those questions.
Thank you.
I would say it's like I'm sitting in the front row seat of the best classroom ever. It's very exciting for me. So I want to get right to the questions because we have a lot of questions.
Sure.
Somebody wrote in and said, my 12-year-old still can't ride a 2-wheel bike. Pedaling is hard, but he can do it, just not while steering and balancing. He doesn't enjoy it and almost immediately lets the bike tip over. I gave up. Now a friend says it will be hard, if not impossible, to teach him to drive if he does not learn this skill. Is that true? What do I need to do to help him ride a bike?
So no, driving and riding a bike have pretty much nothing to do with each other, except for steering. And steering, doesn't require, it's funny, riding a bike is a much harder task than driving a car. And so steering, he can practice obviously on any kind of, the cars in what are they called? Like the cars that you go on in carnivals and.
Oh, yeah, like the Autobahn at Disneyland.
Right,
or even a video game, maybe.
Or carts,
Carts,
or like carts.
okay.
Thank you, Emily.
I can't hear.
Yeah, the cars, that sort of thing you can always practice as well. Although a lot of carts go very fast, but I mean, anything that you can sit in and steer will help you with the steering aspect of driving. He's not quite there yet, so. Right now, what you are working on is riding a bike, and it's a little bit difficult because he's 12, so I assume he's kind of big and difficult to help balance him. But you definitely don't want to teach numerous skills at the same time. So I would really focus first on just the pedaling, because you're saying that he's almost good at that. So I would get a stationary bike or take him to the gym where there is a stationary bike and just practice the pedaling aspect so that he becomes very, very good at pedaling. Because establishing balance has to do with pedaling, right? If you're slow, then you're not going to have balance. If you're going faster, you will have balance. So make sure that he's able to go faster, and then you will need an adult, someone who's much larger than he is or is able to keep up with him, to be able to do just like we do with any other child, which is essentially hold the back of his bike while he's pedaling and run behind him and then gradually let go. And so just split up those particular tasks so that it's one thing or another. Steering becomes an issue, obviously, and as I said, steering he can practice separately. But so you're breaking down each of those types of skills and not really requiring him to do all three at the same time. So that's steering, pedaling, and then keeping balance.
Okay. And if a 12-year-old isn't finding it reinforcing, is it important to do?
No, it's not. I mean, thank you for bringing that up, because, I tortured my son to learn biking just because we as a family go biking. But the truth is, I mean, if you don't need to, pick your battles, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so not necessarily essential, and it doesn't, I love the fact that it doesn't mean that they can't drive a car eventually.
Well, it has nothing to do with each other at all.
Okay.
And the thing is, though, that, I always encourage parents who are willing to attack these issues to go ahead and do it, because obviously you're teaching him a leisure activity.
Yeah. And
our kids need all the leisure activities they can get. So.
Yeah. And it seems like it's a very social thing at that age.
It's a social thing. It's an exercise related thing as well, which is all of our kids in this day and age need anything that's going to give them exercise.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of benefits. And don't think that while he's learning, of course he's 12, but I mean, that's why we also have training wheels. If you don't have an adult who can actually run behind him and hold him, training wheels are a very effective way of teaching the individual to have balance, because they maintain balance, and then you very gradually lift them, so then they're not useful anymore. It's a shaping procedure.
I never realized that before. Right. Okay, fascinating, wonderful. Okay, this is a question that we've had in many different varieties, but what BCBA programs do you recommend? And we actually had somebody wanting to know last week, is there anything in Wisconsin specifically? This one is just open. Yeah, I don't know what there is in Wisconsin. Obviously, I have to, first of all, recommend anything that is taught out of University of Nevada, Reno, UNR. The faculty there, in my mind, are some of the best people in behavior analysis. And then as well as UNR, I really want to say that we've been delighted to work with Florida Institute of Technology, FIT, and a lot of our folks go to FIT, and they have a fantastic program. We had Tom Szabo on the show just a couple of weeks ago. Right, and he works from FIT. He works for FIT and is helping run our cohort right now. We have multiple cohorts with FIT. We have people going through their masters for their BCBA, BCABA, lots of different programs, and they're very, very
capable, and a lot of their coursework is online, which is extremely helpful. There are a lot of programs. I mean, I don't know really, like, I know that in terms of ease of use, National even has an online program, St. Cloud. There's so many different ABA programs, my goodness. These are all after my time. I went to UCLA before ABA even existed, or we used to call it behavior modification. Let's put it that way. But when you have Jonathan on, he would be the best person to talk about this because he's pretty much aware of everything that's out there.
Okay, well, definitely.
Or Adele, they both are very aware, and they're at ABBA International. They should be back today.
Yes, we're excited. They're going to be on the show tomorrow, both of them.
Oh, wonderful! I'm very curious. Yeah. I have to remember to watch the show tomorrow.
There we go.
Curious to see how it went.
All right, we're going to take a short break and come back with more of Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Hello, activist. Let's talk about step 8. State your intention. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it. Author Napoleon Hill wrote that 100 years ago. The Power of Positive Thinking. Norman Vincent Peale wrote that 60 years ago. See, practicing positive focused thought has been around a long time, long before The Secret came about. That's because practicing positive focused thinking really works. Think about when you drive somewhere in your car. You don't just go around in circles. You have a destination, right? I mean, sure, there's going to be speed bumps and detours along the way, but you know where you're going. State what you want to achieve. Say it aloud, write it down. I have Post-its on my computer. One says, get Wyatt all the treatment and therapy he needs to reach his full potential. Step 2, help other families. The focus part is really important because I realize that in this lifetime, I'm not going to be elected president or become a rock star, but I'm doing okay on those first 2 steps. Live in a state of knowing you will reach your goals for you and your child. Until next time, keep the faith.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet is here with us answering your questions live. So thrilled to have her here.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. I'm so sick of trying to find a program for my teenage daughter that isn't geared toward the 14 boys that are also participating. Any ideas for a teenage daughter? I was going to say 14, but it's 14 boys in the group.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what type of program you're looking for. Do they elaborate on anything? So I guess I'm guessing that it's either a social skills program or leisure or something like that. I mean, and I don't know where you are, too, so that's the other thing. We have... I'm trying to give resources here. I mean, there's a website called Love My Provider. If you are in California, I think Love My Provider can probably help you with access to resources out there. I don't know how to guide you other than that because I don't know what type of program and I don't know where you are.
Yeah. I'm aware of there's a group that's growing called Girl Power.
Oh, nice.
That is in different places, but you'd pretty much have to go to their website, which I'm thinking is probably girlpower.com, or Google it to see. But I don't know how many places there are, but like I'm always...
They're developing a lot of these. I mean, this is one that you just... in terms of activities for teenagers, there's so much developing now in theater.
Yes.
We were just talking a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, with Lane Hall about she wants to replicate and do much more musicals, and I want to work with her to try to get her into each of the card sites so that we can pick adolescents, teenagers for her to develop singing for. One of my previous recovered adults who just now is getting her bachelor's and has actually been working for us as a therapist. We were talking yesterday, and she was telling me that she's really interested in developing some dance programs for our kids in our various sites. So there's a lot of stuff developing, I know, in the entertainment arts or like performing arts area for our teenagers, which I think is fabulous. I love it.
And we've seen that some of the girls, like I'm thinking of, I think it's Joe Mantegna's daughter, who got involved with inclusion films and got interested in the makeup for films.
Oh, I didn't know she got into makeup. Funny.
I think it's Joe Mantegna's daughter.
She was doing, the interviewing. She was doing, she was being the MC sort of, and doing a lot of the interviews, and she was fabulous with it. Very, very good.
I think those are great opportunities for our girls.
Yeah.
And if the program doesn't exist where you are, it's one of those things where when you see a need, fill it.
Yeah.
And maybe there are, I'm just guessing, maybe there are 12 other moms who are sitting there saying, why isn't there a program for my daughter?
Right.
Be the change that you want to see.
That's right.
Maybe you need to start the Girl Power chapter where you are, or the theater program. What is it that your daughter is interested in, and make that club, make that organization.
Absolutely.
You could change things for a whole bunch of people, starting with your daughter.
Which would be so amazing, right?
Wouldn't it?
That's absolutely.
Every time I meet somebody now and I say, how did you have that idea that they're doing something incredible? And almost always it's, well, I needed something for my kid, and that's how I got started in this.
Yeah.
So, maybe you could be the next person to head something off. We'll look forward to hearing from you what you decide to do. Okay, moving on to the next question. We couldn't get ABA when my son was little. Then when he was 15, we tried, but it seemed like it was geared toward little kids, not the real life stuff he needed. Now he's 24, doing well, but there are things he needs to learn. Is there something ABA for these kiddos?
Yes. Excellent question, and I appreciate the question because we are getting a lot more questions from parents who have children who are older. And you are absolutely right. Most ABA programs, I think it's due to the lack of additional training, I guess I would say, or due to what students learn in college. Most ABA programs are focused on very young kids, so early intervention. And that's basically because most of the BCBAs who come out of universities now are just taught the very basic, sort of how to work with a 2-year-old, 3-year-old. If that, I mean, I have to step back. In our day, when I was going to school, we were very focused on early intervention, very, very focused. But then we gradually grew with the adults, obviously, because I was going to school before there were adults, or that many adults, right? It was a very low prevalence back then. But these days, I think we see our adults in different, I think the mentality is basically, if you're a child, if you're a very young child, I'll use ABA to get rid of challenging behaviors and to teach you skills because you have potential to recover. If you're an adult, I'm just going to use ABA to deal with challenging behaviors. Well, that's a very incorrect mentality or thought process, because our adults learn just like our kids do. We've published on this, and in fact, it's we're looking at some of the data coming out of skills right now, Shannon, and we're seeing that our adults learn at the same rate as our kids do, which is pretty amazing.
Love that.
It really is fascinating stuff. Which actually shocked me, but it makes sense. It's just they have so much more to learn, right? And it is entirely possible to find programs that are focused on teaching rather than just dealing with challenging behavior. And this is all ABA programs dealing with ABA. CARD has a very fantastic, I think, adolescent adult program, which we launched last year, or we've launched multiple times. We have about 40 or 50 adults now that are in our program, but we're focused on different things. We're focused on vocational skills. We want to teach our adults jobs and get them out there. In a separate thing, we are very focused on leisure and social, trying to just teach them various things like that. But our adult program program is massive. I mean, it goes from everything from, teaching the individual how to balance a checkbook, if they're capable of that, to very, very basic adaptive skills, like, being able to brush your teeth or shave or go to take care of your apartment, whatever it may be. I mean, it's a huge program.
So it's very specific to the individual.
Very specific, and it really does encompass every possible skill. And I think that's what this parent is referring to, and I completely agree. There aren't adult programs, there are very, very few adult programs in the country where the focus is something that is a teaching skill. In other words, it's increasing the individual's skill level. But what I'm saying is contact us. We have these programs all over our offices, all over the country. We'd be happy to try to guide you if we can't provide services. And you should look, because yes, to answer your question, ABA, the same techniques that we use in teaching young children can be used to teach adults. It doesn't make any difference. It's just a matter of content, curriculum, and a lot of ABA providers haven't developed curriculum and content. But they can. It's easy. Anything you think of, like let's say I want to teach someone how to shave, and I've never been exposed to a curriculum. It's a very simple backward chaining procedure. Any behaviorist should be able to take the process of shaving, break it into steps, and teach it using backward chaining.
And then, and just for, because one of the things that I hear here and that I hear all the times from parents, that they think that they're going to teach it in a way that's baby. And, I'm really struck by the fact that when I came to understand what ABA was and how many different applications of it there are, and that people use ABA techniques to train athletes, Olympic athletes. So there's nothing baby about it. It's just being able to separate it into a way that you can actually learn it.
Right, and so it's not going to, what you do with adults is you're not doing discrete trial necessarily, sitting down and repeating something 3 times, etc. That's not the way you do it. A lot of the techniques are then employed through natural environment training. So again, going back to the example of shaving, like you will essentially set out all the material and do everything through modeling with the individual, and then teach the individual to do the last step on their own, and then teach them to do the last 2 steps and the last 3 steps, and so on and so forth. And you have picture schedules to help the individual. So everything is done more or less through environment and modeling, and using ABA techniques, which involve reinforcing the smallest steps and chaining all the steps together and so on.
So making it very possible wherever that individual is to teach them whatever skill is important to you and to them. Wonderful. So again, you can contact CARD. They could call the 800 number to be able to do that,
or
just
call the 800 number. And it's funny because the person here who's the most passionate about this is Sarah Cho, who is also Director of Operations at CARD and is probably one of the most busy people I know. And yet, it's always the busy people that get more done, which is amazing to me. So, just talk to admissions and talk to them about the adult program or the adolescent adult program. And if you have any difficulties, please try to get in touch with Sarah Cho at CARD. And she will definitely guide you.
Okay, and we've been meaning to have her on the show for a while, but she's incredibly busy.
She's busier than I am.
Yeah, well, that's saying a lot. But at some point, we'll get Sarah on the Sarah Cho on the show to talk about. That's hard to say. Sarah Cho on the show. To talk about some of these different programs, because it's really quite amazing. But don't give up. If there are things that you want to learn, there are absolutely programs for you. Okay, next question on the opposite end age-wise. A 3-year-old with autism isn't making sound. Is there hope for verbal at some point? And they said, my heart breaks.
Oh, yes, there definitely is. And I'm so sorry. It's very difficult, I'm sure, for you. Get intervention right now. I assume normally when we're trying to produce sound, we will go after speech pathology, and with speech pathology, the concept of anything intensive is probably more like 2 hours or 3 hours a week. That's not enough. So Of course, please do get your 3 hours a week of speech. That's great. That will assist. But also, please get, I don't know, 20 hours of ABA at least, working on just speech production and very basic sound imitation and sound production. Prompt techniques in speech are useful for the production of sound. In ABA, what we do is we usually generate sound because the first thing we use, the first concept we teach is manding or requesting, and because it has its own inherent motivation. So when you're requesting something, you're very motivated because you want it, and therefore you will do whatever you can to try to get that object producing sound. So we have some techniques in ABA that'll help, but then I think speech pathologists have good techniques as well, prompt techniques and fabulous techniques in terms of trying to get speech production. Your ABA group should also be doing a lot of oral motor activities, and because sometimes our kids are not able to produce sound, they're highly apraxic, their tongue is not moving fast enough, there's a lot of motor issues that need to be dealt with, and so please don't give up, and please do get involved with pretty heavy intervention. I've had, I don't know, maybe half my kids, or maybe, I don't know, maybe a third of my kids at age 3 are nonverbal. So don't let this freak you out at all, because that's the age that we start to intervene.
It's amazing because there's a mom who has been on the show a couple of times, a very active blogger, and when her son, who's now 27, was little, she remembered that the statistic was something like 17% of kids who weren't verbal would become verbal. And then recently she looked it up again and emailed us, and it's closer to like 78% now of kids who are on the autism spectrum who aren't verbal who will become verbal. So yes. That's a much different number from the time that her son was 3 to now being 27. Gives you a lot of hope.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, I can only speak personally, and personally, I've learned a lot over the last 20 years how to make a child produce sound. Just the fact that we start with mands or requests in itself is a big positive, and that's something that we didn't used to do 25 years ago. So that is very useful. Prompt techniques involve touch to the face, and they're very, very helpful for the individual. The fact that we've come to the conclusion that a lot of this has to do with apraxia, and that there are oral motor exercises. We never used to do that 20 years ago. The fact that we are able to now bring sensory types of exercises and activities into like just even things like blowing party favors or whistle, air production. We've learned so much more over the last 20 years, so which I think contributes to that percentage increase.
It's amazing. It gives a lot of hope. All right, we're going to take a short break and come back with more of Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages. Stick with us.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackerman, Talk of Facts, autism journey questions and answers that help you get down the path in your autism journey faster, easier, like the Superman that you need to be, or Supergirl. But on a serious note, one of the most common questions that I get is, what do I do when my child is a non-responder to therapeutics and medical intervention? If you have a child that's a non-responder, know this, and if you've been on the journey for a long time, there's been more research in treatments for autism since 2005 than all previous years combined. So my first recommendation for a kid, for a family that has a kid with a non-responding issue to treatments, therapies, and medical intervention, is to reevaluate the treatments that are available. Start with the basics. Go back and revisit a MAPS doctor. Get all of that baseline testing, or a good neuropsych if you need to look at the therapeutics. Start with the baseline. The second thing families need to know when they are dealing with a child that has non-responder issues is really, you're going to have to scale up. And I mean scale up the time you're spending with your resources to figure out and really become the Sherlock Holmes to understanding what is going on, what is impeding progress, why aren't things moving forward. You really need to make sure that you have a current MRI and a current EEG. Those two tests are so extremely valuable. Often they will provide clues as to what is going on and what treatments that really could help your child make the best progress they can make. Hey, there's another frequently asked question. Wish I had my magic fairy wand so everybody was a responder. It's in the shop. Maybe I'll get it next time when we get together and talk about Facts. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back to I'm all confused about everything. Autism Live and Ask Dr. Doreen. We're so thrilled that we have Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet with us today, and she's answering your questions. Great question from a parent. How do I know what the least restricted environment for my child is? They say it's special day class, but how do I know if they're right?
Okay, so the least restrictive environment for your child is the most independent environment that your child will succeed in. So I wish I had the chart in front of me, but there's a chart actually that shows sort of the most independent are obviously being regular education without any assistance, without an aid, okay? And the most restrictive being, let's say, special education, small group class. And there's all these tiers in between, which are, so like at some point your child is able to go from special education to regular ed, or they're able to go partial. So they're sort of, for let's say 2 or 3 hours of the day, they're mainstreamed in regular ed. Usually that will start with something like physical education or lunch breaks or whatever it might be. They are taken to the regular ed. The rest of the time they're in special ed. Special ed, you get much more attention, obviously, so it's a much lower ratio of teacher to student. Regular education, depending on the grade that the child's in, you get much lower attention because there's so many children and one teacher and maybe one aide. So it really depends on how much your child is capable of. I find often that if you have somewhere in that hierarchy or in those tiers, once you enter regular education, you always enter with an aid. Now you have to, so basically, let's say you have special ed, then you have special ed, with some reverse mainstreaming or something, and then you have regular ed at some point. Mm-hmm. And once you enter regular ed, it should be with an aid. And that is very expensive for the school district, so you need to watch out for that, because that's the step they're going to want to skip. They're going to want to keep your child in special ed for as long as they can because it's cheaper. And then if you're, so there's a bigger, I guess, dichotomy for special ed, whereas in our minds with our own kids, it's not, there isn't no dichotomy, it's a gradual fade. So the school might say, stay in special ed, stay in special ed, stay in special ed. They get more money and it's cheaper for them. And then, but if your child is much higher functioning, they'll say, okay, you can go to regular ed and you're on your own. Right. Whereas really in the middle, there's some ground that is probably where your child fits in, which is your child capable of some hours of the day at least being in regular ed with a one-to-one aid? Fight for that. That's very important. It is your right to have that. And that one-to-one aid is what makes it possible for your child to mainstream, to go to the regular ed. And that one-to-one aid has to be well trained. So it's not enough just to get an aid from the school. I cannot tell you how many times I have gone to schools to observe a child, and I've seen the aide and the school aide somewhere outside having a cigarette or something, like not even there. Please make sure that you have a really good aide. School districts will have to provide an aide if you get that in your IEP, and then if you have a good lawyer or if you insist on this, you can get them to allow an ABA agency to provide the aid, which is always going to be a different level because that aid will have had better training. And in some cases, they will also allow the ABA agencies to train the school district aide and make things better. But, so you're always shooting for that highest level of independence. But really, I would say the best way for you to find out is just go and observe your child or have a friend observe, because your child might act quite differently if you're there. Yeah. And see, is your child able to do that level, and keep pushing your child up that hierarchy.
Yeah. It's so hard to know as a parent.
Is it? It is, huh?
Because they tell you, and a lot of times, you want to trust them. They're the experts, right? But we all are aware of the fact that a lot of their decisions are being driven by money.
Right.
Which makes it hard to trust them.
It's so true. These are the things that never really occurred to me but when I think about my own kids, for instance, I would love to, even with my kids, it's nice to have an agency. I mean, I think this is sort of part of what we did for parents and have continued to do for many years, is we're so on your side, we're so with the parents in terms of, I'm going to get the best thing there is out there for your kids, and which is probably why school districts really don't like us all that much, because we don't care about the cost.
Yeah.
They shouldn't care about the cost either, but obviously
legally they're not supposed to.
Right. But obviously they have constraints and they can't not care about the costs.
Yeah. I do think that having somebody else who is not tied to the funding, there were many instances where we would have somebody at CARD that I knew and knew me, and in some cases did not know my child, but knew what our goals were, because sometimes it needed to be someone who didn't know our son. I think about a couple of years ago when we weren't sure about what was happening, and Hank, you guys sent Hank in, and Hank had never met my child before, but he knew me and knew what I wanted to make sure, what goals we achieved, and so he went in and observed and came back, and it was a wealth of information for me that he said, here's what's happening, here's what needs to happen, but here's where you don't need to worry, because he's doing this and doing that, and it was like having a trusted pair of eyes there to see, and he got a really good glimpse at it, because if I had gone in, all the kids know me and my son knows me, and everything goes out the window. I don't really get a good read for what's happening.
I often do that. I often will send a senior supervisor in just to do an observation, because I don't want the child reacting to either me being there, the parent, or someone they know being there. And so, when Hank goes in, obviously Jen doesn't know who he is or why he's there, and it's very good.
And for those of you who don't know, Hank has been on the show a couple of times. Hank is one of the sweetest souls on the face of the earth, and to me, he's a rock star, because if you've read the book, A Real Boy, Christina Adams, who's been on the show, she talks about her experience of coming to CARD many years ago, and Hank was her case supervisor, and I read that thing like it was the Bible, and, just would refer back to it, and all the different times that we were doing therapy and we would come into the CARD building, I would be looking for, where's Hank, and did she change the name? Is there really a Hank? And I would ask questions, never saw him. And it was only about 2 years ago that I walked into the conference room and somebody said, "Oh, have you met Hank?" And I acted like a teenager at a Justin Bieber concert.
That's so funny. I didn't know that.
I blubbered and went, "Oh, are you the real Hank?" And of course, he thought I'd lost my mind. But he was very sweet about it.
This is something that I love about our senior people, like Hank. I'm just so blessed to have these people in my life. But, for me to have had the opportunity to have someone like Hank, for instance, around for past 20 years, and now, he's board certified, obviously, and now, even though he has so many years of actual ABA under his belt, he is running our entire ERP system, So it's like, that's what I love about our seniors, is that they do so many different things. They help run this company. They don't just, it's amazing.
And they understand on so many levels. He's amazing. And by the way, he's the person, whenever we're talking about compliance, and I say the thing that really got to me, Hank walks through the hallways, and if somebody is saying something about a child who's not being compliant, Hank's first question is, how much are they praising him? Then when I quote to you guys, that's Hank that says that. How much are they praising him? Up the praise, the compliance.
Have you met his kids, his own kids?
Yes, and they're adorable.
They're beautiful.
They're absolutely adorable.
Yeah, I love his kids.
He's an amazing person. All right, I've digressed. Let's get back to a question. Okay, how do we do 40 hours when school starts? Kindergarten, apparently that's what they're starting is kindergarten, and they said they will turn 5 in July. Kindergarten starts August. We started ABA 3 months ago. So the concern is how to keep the 40-hour program going once kindergarten starts.
Okay, so we say the child is how old?
The child will turn 5 in July, and they're slated to go to kindergarten apparently in July.
Okay, so I'm assuming...
Or excuse me, in August.
Right. So I am assuming that the child is high functioning, and that you will have an aide with the child in school, and the hours that the aide is with the child count towards the 40 hours.
Okay.
So
That's a fairly big assumption, though.
That is
right?
a big assumption, because I'm not sure I would mainstream otherwise. Like, in other words, I would not be shooting for kindergarten unless that's the case. So I'm very, I have a very sort of strict idea of how to progress through intervention, and it's important to me because it helps me prioritize. So when I say I start with, let's say I start with a child at 4 or 3, whatever it is, I'm doing the 40 hours, and when I start to infuse them into school, it has to be on my terms, not based on just their age. So it has to be that I'm ready to actually put the child in school, and that the child's going to benefit from being in school. And then I will also, kindergarten is when things start to get serious and I can't mess around, and I pretty much have to give my child up for about 30 hours.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I will definitely make sure that I have an aide with the child, but I won't, if not for the whole time. Let me just say that. If I have the child in school and I have an aide with them, even for the whole time, for the 30 hours, I would still do another 20 hours of intervention at home.
Okay.
So, and how you get that in is you do it after school. We have sessions every day from 4 to 6. Our sessions go all the way till 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And then you cover the weekends.
Yeah.
You intervene during the weekends, and you have to get your ABA people to do that. I mean, all of our staff work on it, or we have some full activity on the weekends.
And sometimes kindergarten is only half day. Sometimes it's full day.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on where you are in the country.
Oh, good. Okay.
Sometimes it's just still half day, especially in this economy. A lot of schools are half day.
And you can always, even if your child is in kindergarten, you can always pull out early.
Yeah. And honestly, when you're 5, and especially if he's turning 5 in the summer, it's not unusual for people to wait 1 more year with kindergarten.
That's very true.
And that's with neurotypical kids.
Very true.
So if you decided to, as you were saying, to wait, you're not going to set them back by waiting it that year. No,
not at all. And I will say this a billion times. Your intensive ABA program is much, much more important at this point, because it is like having quality one-to-one tutoring. Your kindergarten program will have the benefits of allowing social opportunities for interaction. And there you go, just weigh those two against each other. I'm not saying to keep your child out of social opportunities, but realistically, with everything that your child needs to learn, exposing them to social opportunities is maybe 1/10 of all the other things. I mean, your child has to be learning language and cognitive skills and adaptive safety skills and self-help skills and executive functioning skills and motor skills. And there's a billion other things that your child has to learn, and social is very, very important, but it's like 1/8 or 1/7 of what they have to learn. And on top of that, bringing it all together is something that your ABA program will help you do. I also insist for my kids that if they go to school, they have a certain level of basic language skills and understanding and communication, so that they're actually successful and don't feel separated or apart from the other kids. So that's another important factor.
So having that time at home actually sets them up for success in the social arena, as opposed to throwing them in the deep end of the pool.
Exactly, and you summarized it very well, because a lot of times parents are very concerned and they want to get their child in school. I say, don't worry about that. Just don't worry about it. Get your child prepared and teach them. This is like having one-to-one versus group instruction. Which one's better? One-to-one instruction, always, no matter what it is.
I always think about the very first IEP that we went to when Jem was 3, and what they wanted and the goals that they gave. It tore my heart out of my body, because they listed a bunch of goals, and every single, like one of them was that he'll be able to separate colors. He was 3, into separate cups. And I thought, that's one of the skills he actually already has. Like they would give him little teddy bears and he could put them into the cups so that all the yellow ones ones, all the red ones, and all the blue ones. He could do that like nobody's business. And I said that to them in the IEP, and I said, why do we have a goal that he can already do? If we're going to give goals, let's have. And they said, yeah, but he can't do it when other kids are around because of all the sensory and the stuff. And I said, so why how does this make sense as a goal? And they said, well, he has to be able to do that with lots of, and they wanted to spend the whole year on that when he was 3. And I said, no, like that's a crazy idea. And instead we had 40 hours of card in our home so that when he went to school, he went to preschool, fully included a year later, he only went to that part-time, he had gotten caught up in all these skills so he could do the work that the other kids were doing and he could hang socially. And when I think about if I had listened to them.
I know, it's very annoying. And it's, the issue is that you know, here's, oh God, I hope I don't get myself into trouble by saying this, but this is my personal thinking about this is that, you know, we write these IEP. I mean, my most hated activity is going to an IEP meeting. Let me just say that I hate it because it's a complete waste of time and it makes me crazy. I want to kill myself.
Any sane person would be crazy at an IEP meeting.
They're awful, and you know, you sit around for 3 hours and you set up 5 goals that the child is supposed to master over the course of 1 year. I at least 100 times have taken those 5 goals that were written for an annual IEP and have taught the child those 5 things in 2 months. So that's what CARD does. That's what good ABA does, is it teaches you much more rapidly. And secondly, even when there is an IEP in place, honestly, how many times do you think most teachers or aides even look at that thing? So it's very annoying to have that thing govern your child's life for the next year. It really is.
Because they're legally responsible for teaching those things. But I will say this, that since having skills, my IEPs are faster.
Are useful,
My IEPs are less than an hour and 15 minutes now, which is insanity. I am like, what happened? And we are getting much better goals written in that are substantive and that make sense and that they agree to much quicker because of skills.
And then you just have to now make sure that they actually implement during the course of the year.
Well, you know, our school is very good about that, and we get regular notifications and benchmarks, and they will adjust things if they're not making progress toward meeting the goal. But they know I'm going to be on them about that. And I know lots of moms, I didn't do it this year, but I've done it in years past, and lots of moms, I didn't invent this, other moms suggested it to me, getting a sheet protector, copying the IEP and the BIP, putting that on the back, and sliding it into a sheet protector and having magnets attached to it and taking it in on the first day and attaching it to the side of something metallic, either the desk or the file cabinet that's in the teacher's room, and then giving it to every single person who your child interacts with so they can't say they didn't read it.
Teachers and aides.
Everyone. So that, I mean, that doesn't ensure that they're going to look at it, but at least they can't say, I couldn't find it, I didn't know where it was.
I know, and that's, so then, you know, that accomplishes the fact that everybody's read it, and then on the other end of the I guess the other side of the coin is that you just have to make sure that nobody really stigmatizes your child and because of an IEP existing treats your child differently.
Good luck with that.
I
think, Emily, we have time for one more question. Okay, new behavior. He is poking himself in the eye. 4 years old with some words, help. You need a behaviorist on this. You will have to do a FBA to look at the functional assessment and identify why he's doing it. There could be so many reasons. He could be doing it because he's attention seeking. He could be doing it because he has an allergy, his eye itches. He could be doing it because it's self-stimulatory in nature. It makes things look funny. You have to identify first why he's doing it, and then that will help lead to the intervention. Clearly, because it's a dangerous thing, you will be, in most cases, you'll be blocking, preventing this from happening, unless it's attention seeking, in which case, if you try to block it, it'll probably increase. So you really do need to first identify the function of the behavior. Okay, really, really important, and you want to get a BCBA to do that.
You need behaviors to be able to take a look at it and say why it's happening. You can also go on our skills website, and there is a CFA there, which is the indirect functional assessment that CARD has developed. and it asks you a bunch of questions about this behavior, and it'll help you identify the function. You can use our CIFA, and if you do use our CIFA, then I would recommend that you use the BIP builder that goes with it.
Okay.
So you'll answer a bunch of questions. The CIFA will help identify why he's doing it, and then it'll link you to the BIP builder, which will tell you what to do and what the intervention should, or the options, all the options of interventions.
Okay, so let's give you a couple of quick websites. If you want to get a pencil, you can take down. So you can go to skillsforautism.com and go in and take a look at the CIFA and the BIP builder.
And I think the BIP builder and CIFA are on their own website as well.
They are, and I think that's skills, BIPbuilder.com. So you can go there as well. If you want to find a BCBA, you can go to BACB.com and put in your .org, excuse me, thank you.
Sure.
And you can put in your zip code and it will give you lists of board-certified behavior analysts. And of course, you can always go to centerforautism.com, click on the locations tab, see if there is a card office close to you. Even if there isn't, you can call the 800 number that's listed there and ask them if you can get remote services, and in that way you would get a card BCBA. So all of those different things are available to you, but you don't want to do nothing. Don't let it go.
Right.
It's something to be concerned about, but you need to know why it's happening before you can effectively intervene. We are out of time, unfortunately, but thank you so much for being here with us. We're going to take a short break and go to the A Word, which is the ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2 and is now having that early intensive behavioral intervention in his home. He's having the best of quality ABA in his home, and we get to see what the arc is, how they're teaching him a skill and how teaching another skill and then pairing those skills together to help this child to be able to communicate, and he's making great progress. So take a look. This is the A Word.
We skipped a few in the middle, didn't we, love? Jack Riley likes to watch videos about the ABCs, or the ABBCs, as he likes to say. He kept throwing a fit and misbehaving when he wasn't getting what he wanted. We finally decided it was time to turn off the computer. And of course we did that without warning him.
He threw one of the biggest tantrums I've ever seen from him, because he's used to getting his way now, because now that he can say it, we're supposed to reward him. But now he's testing us.
While we are 100% ABA advocates and we believe it is working on our son, there is a little fallout in reinforcing these requests that he doesn't quite understand now, that he doesn't get everything he wants.
Bye-bye! This is completely typical. When requesting isn't something that happens naturally with your child, you want to create as many opportunities to practice the skill. So you reinforce each time they request, because it will increase the frequency they demand. Once the requests are at a rate you want, then you should begin to fade the frequency of reinforcement and teach new advanced skills, such as having the child wait for a desired item or let them know that they must choose something else. These are all life skills. Not every desire will be met, but you are more likely to get what you want if you communicate your wants appropriately.
You want some applesauce, buddy?
Yeah, why don't we put the car over here,
Yeah, let's take the car. We're just gonna take a break. Take a break. Take a break. Do you want this? Do you want the car?
Do you want more car?
Settle down. Settle down.
Okay,
Settle
do you
down.
want more car? Okay, and you want applesauce? Okay. Alright, take another bite. One more. There you go.
Nice, that was a good
Okay.
bite too, buddy.
There you go.
Good bite.
Alright. Yeah, I should have warned him before I took it away.
We get reminded all the time. It just works so well.
It does, it really does,
Forget to
yeah.
do it.
Okay, 10 more seconds and bye-bye car, okay? Bye-bye car. 10 okay. Okay, let me have it. Bye-bye, car.
Oh.
No, that's okay. Settle down.
Thank you.
Take two bites, please. Do you want the car?
Yes.
Two bites. 2 bites. Good talking.
1, and then 2.
Good job. Good job, buddy.
Good job.
Good job. Good job.
How has mealtime been going with you? Still the same? Still
Yeah, it's
pretty
going well. Yeah. You know what he had last night? Did Cheryl tell you?
No.
We are documenting this because this bite of spaghetti that he's about to take is the first ever meal that Jack Riley has had exactly what Mommy and Daddy are having. With the exception of the cottage cheese. He would eat that too, but we're going slow. I realize it's just spaghetti, and lots of kids probably eat spaghetti, but our kid never did. Not for us, anyway. And now, he's like just a regular kid having dinner with Mom and Dad.
Good boy. Good boy. Say choo-choo. Choo-choo. Say here we go. Here you go. All right, make it go down. Go down. Whee! Yay! Good job. Should we build more tracks? Okay, sure. Here you go. Do you want the green one or the blue one? Green. You want which one? Black. You want black? Oh, well, none of the ones I offered you. Cool. I like that. I like it. And he's definitely requesting more eating and drinking, which is really good to hear. So I don't know if they want to introduce him to other things. It's up to them. But just the fact that he's requesting to drink is a big deal for him. Hey, Jack, 1 more minute, okay? Say, okay. 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 He has an issue sometimes, like inflexibility a little bit, with just the trains in particular. When I'll ask him to come over to do a program real quick, he'll want to clean up the trains up every single time. With the other toys though, like I can call him over, he can take a break, he's totally fine, and then after we're done with that program, he'll go back and he'll play. With the trains in particular, I don't know why he wants to clean them up every single time. So I'll run some programs and we'll see if he has that issue still. Hey, Jack. Good looking. Come here. Yeah! That's such good listening. Good job, mister. What is this? What are those? No, what are these? What's this? What's this one? Yay! There you go. Ears. Very good, kiddo. Hey, look at me. Hey, look over. Yay! There you go. What are these? Fingers. Good job. What are... Mouth, yeah. What's this? Head. Very good. Okay, one more sticker. What are these? Fingers. Good job. All right. Yeah, that transition was a lot better. Where's Piglet?
Welcome back to Autism Live, and we're in just a few minutes. We are going to be, I misspoke before and said we weren't going to be doing a live Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, but we are. We are going to do a live Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and we're having Vince Redmond a little bit later. But just wanted to take a brief moment to talk about, that was the A word that you were just watching, and it is available to you, the entire series, on its very own YouTube page, and I encourage you to check it out. So in that episode, taking a look at some of the different ways that we teach a child. And what I find particularly exciting about that is watching the therapist work with the child, and we see that there are the little breaks where they do the fun things with a little piglet on his head, and, you know, because he's enjoying it. And you see the way she said, you know, what are these? And she, you know, touched his ears, and he didn't say it right away. And yet she doesn't turn into a drill sergeant and go, you know, what are these? You know, because I don't know about you, but I can get strident so quickly with my voice. I can go right to, you know, that, and then start putting way too many words in and saying, you know, we did this yesterday, you know that. ixnay on the extra language, right? But instead, and even when she corrects him, she goes, and, you know, it's not a big deal. It's like, no big deal. There's no shame in it. What are these, you know? And she'll touch one and then touches the other, and he's kind of being tickled. And then finally he says ears, and she goes, yes, those are ears, and gives him that reinforcement so that then, you know, and she does behavioral momentum, so getting to the ones that are harder. But you see that the rapport grows and grows and grows. I love, there's a moment in there towards the end where she was saying to him, you know, look at me. And then he echoed, right? And he said, look at me, because he's so in tune with, I'm supposed to do what you do and I have fun when I do, that now he's echoing her prompt. Now that's something that will happen with our kids, right? Or they will start doing what we do. With my son, he had such a hard time. He was always looking out the corner of his eye and he couldn't quite get his eyes to focus on you. And so we had a couple of therapists who would put their hands up to kind of reduce the field of choices of what he had to look at. But sometimes we do things in therapy to get to a point, right? And it has a little bit of a backlash, like Jack Riley saying, look at me, right? It's important not to panic when that happens, but to begin to be aware of that and adjust that. And you'll see that over the coming weeks that Jessica does adjust that, the therapist, so that she's not prompting as much, right? That's a key saying right there. We just don't want to do it over and over and over again. And what happened with Jem is that they would put their hands up like blinders so that he would look at them. But then he started doing that to us. When he wanted our attention, he would come up to us and he would put his hands like this to get us to look at him. So we had to do things a little bit different, you know, and it is one of those things that we keep in mind, that we're always course correcting. You know, we're always saying, we're trying to get to the lesson, and we try something and then it goes a little bit too far this way, so we swing back a little bit this way, so that we're being productive. There is no autopilot on ABA. You don't push a button and go, oh, well, the program is loaded, I can sit back and relax and, you know, we'll get there. It just doesn't work that way. But you know, that's all of life, right? I love now on my iPhone that it has that maps feature and I can see where I'm going. And the other day I had to go on a trip quite far, and every once in a while I would check in on the map to see where I was. And I realized that I'd gotten 30 minutes out of my way because I had missed one of the intersections that I was supposed to go this way, not that way. You know, you got to check in every once in a while and say, am I on course? Same thing with ABA. So I encourage you to watch this entire series, The A Word, so that you're getting inspired to see what's possible. You'll see that eventually Jack Riley requests like a champ, makes eye contact like a champ. It all becomes his own, and that he's thrilled when the therapists come to the door. He loves Jessica. And by the way, she's not the only therapist on the team. We just focus on her so that you see a through line, and from time to time you'll see other people on the team, but they focus on Jessica, and that's a wonderful thing, right? But don't be confused about the fact that there are many, many, many more people on his team, and that he also adores them. He has an individual relationship with each one of them. So we love this series. Encourage you to watch it on their very own YouTube channel. Use it as a tool. It's there for you. And they also have a Facebook page where the parents actually post things, so you can have a conversation with the mom and dad from the A Word, who we adore. Aren't they just amazing that they allowed us in to be able to see this? It's such a service to our community. Can't say enough good things about that family. All right, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, it'll be time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be with us. Stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yeah.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received a grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, they wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Smarty. Today I have a special guest with me. What the heck? She's missing!
Here I am!
And what's your name?
Mackenzie.
And what are we doing today?
Making sidewalk paint.
And how do we do that?
I have no idea.
So, the materials we'll be needing
are 2 cups of cornstarch, 1 cup of cold water, 4.5 cups of boiling water. Be careful. A mixing bowl, a spoon, 5 cups, and food coloring.
So, the first step we're gonna do is we're gonna take our 2 cups of cornstarch and put it in the big bowl.
Yes.
Can you do that for me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's all right, I'll help you. Step 2, you're gonna put the cold water into the bowl.
Cold water into the bowl.
Good job. Step 3, we're gonna stir it with a big spoon.
stirring it until it's all the way mixed together. So the next step is adding the boiling water. That's a little dangerous for her, so I'll be doing it myself, 1 cup at a time, stirring it together. You gonna keep an eye on me?
Yes.
So once we're done stirring the cornstarch water, we're gonna start making our dyed paste. So what are we gonna do?
We're gonna put in the dye.
Okay.
And we're gonna put it in the sparkles.
All right, let's do it. Move this out of the way. All right, it's all you, Mackenzie. So the more food coloring you use, the brighter it's gonna be.
Ooh.
So let's put the sparkles in.
Now we're gonna put the cornstarch in the jar.
All right, do you wanna stir that up?
It looks pretty. We're gonna make a few more colors and we're gonna go paint outside.
See all the colors in the sky tonight.
Are you excited?
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
Love is the truest state of mind. Now can you see me? Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
You look like you've got your spring flowers on.
I'm rocking the spring flowers, but you look like summer.
Okay, summer.
You
I
just-
decided to do a summer thing today.
You look breezy and,
yeah, well,
and
good.
free spirited.
Well, I wish I was. It's if I'll get there, if I dress like that, maybe I'll get there.
That's right.
Wyatt's out of school.
Yeah, and Jem still has another week.
Oh my Lord, does life change?
Doesn't
Yeah, autism moms and dads out there everywhere.
Yeah.
Gosh, your world gets rocked for a couple of days
Yeah.
or weeks, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy because I'm so used to the schedule of waking up at 6:30, 6, getting ready, taking him to school, coming back, then going to work, and it's just like he's home, and we have therapists coming in the morning for a short period of time, then the whole afternoons are free, and we're trying to adjust to all this stuff.
Okay.
While still running Act Today.
and we've talked a little bit this week on the show about the fact that things change in the summer, and for a lot of people they go, yay, it's the summer, we have free time, and a lot of people in the autism community go, oh, it's the summer, we have less services.
We don't have services, and our children can have significant regressions if they don't go to planned programs and camps and various things.
You gotta have a plan.
Yes, and
we're gonna be talking
and
about
we need to have more fun, and we're going to be talking about fun today with Vince Redmond.
Absolutely, licensed marriage and family therapist, really wonderful. But you had something you wanted to share first, and then we're going to do in the news later.
Yeah, and we're going to get to Vince next. But as I was reading, the topic for today with Vince and having fun, it was really interesting because I went by some photographs in our hallway, and the photographs showed me and Reed and Wyatt before Wyatt regressed. And Emily, can you put up maybe, I don't know which one first, maybe it's the one of the three of us or the one of, do you have those there, Emily? There's one of me and Reed and Wyatt. And then there's one, there we are.
Look at that.
All right, do you see the eye contact? Do you see the natural smile of the child, of my son at a year?
Yeah.
And then there's a second one of me holding him up in joy.
The joy.
Okay, the joy.
Naked joy.
And, I know there are still people out there that don't believe in regressive autism. Well, I can show you those pictures, and I can show you pictures of him at 2.5. And Wyatt had to literally learn. He lost all ability to smile. We would take pictures of him, and there would be a blank, staring look.
Yeah.
And for a long while, he smiled like, and my husband hated it. He'd say, do a real smile. And I'd say, he doesn't know, honey. He doesn't know how to do a real smile.
Yeah.
So we've literally had to learn how to smile again. And he now is starting to, in photographs, show a real smile. So it's kind of nice that our family has learned to smile again.
That's a wonderful.
But in looking at those pictures, it made me sad for a while.
Yeah.
And I was sort of grieving that first blissful year of having a, quote, normal baby. And then I opened a book that a friend and guide to me, a woman named Mirabai Starr, wrote about John the Baptist and St. Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of animals. And Mirabai is one of the most remarkable writers I've ever known. She's an inner spiritual guide. And I came to this, and I just wanted to share it. Consider the great losses in your life that have raged like a forest fire through the landscape of your soul and taken it all to the ground. What new and delicate blossoms have broken through the ravaged soil, fed on nutrients that only fire could create? If you could have your loved one back, or your loved one with autism back to being a typical child, I'm putting that part in, or your job or your health, your community or your identity, would you know what you know, be who you are, love with the quiet beauty with which your grief has taught you to love?
Very powerful. Thank you.
So, things change us.
They sure do.
But grief can transform us.
Absolutely. I always think of the dad that we had on the show who said, I didn't find my voice until my child didn't have one. Just took my breath away when he said that. I went, wow.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't what we would have picked.
No.
But there are things about this that are transformative in a very powerful way.
Yeah, and Mirabai goes on, she lost a child, and we want to have her on the show in the future. She's amazing about dealing with grief and dealing with loss and dealing with when your life is changed. And she goes on to write that if you want to find out how to be of service in the world, look at your deepest wounding. Look at the things, what is the one issue that keeps you burning, keeps you awake at night, and wake up the next day with a prayer to try to change that one thing.
Yeah.
Be it in the life of your own child, and then possibly for some of us in the lives of other children and other families. But go to that one thing that really is your scar, really, and find from that maybe some joy and some purpose.
Absolutely. Powerful, powerful stuff. And we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to welcome Vince Redman, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. He has extensive experience working with individuals on the spectrum, so he knows what families go through.
Yes, yes.
You know, the grief and some of the difficulties and the triumphant moments. And now as a licensed marriage and family therapist, so can really help us to be able to put some of these different things in perspective. And of course, this week, all week long, we're talking about how to have fun. In amongst all of these other things, it's still essential. I was saying before during the break that my dad always used to say, if you're not having fun, what's the point? Right? And it is important to find those ways. So Vince is going to be here with us. If you guys have questions for Vince, now's a good time to write in, but stick with us.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with Talk of Facts. Questions, real life questions and answers for the autism journey. Oh, are you ready for this one? Talk to me about puberty. So what I would recommend is, first and foremost, is the kids that have done the therapeutics, the medical, and the dietary allergen removal interventions tend to have an easier time at puberty. Seizures are really common for children on the spectrum, more than neurotypical populations, and they're especially most common right at or about puberty time. So it's extremely important, even if you have a 10-year-old, that you've already done an EEG, that you consider before they go through puberty to get a second EEG done. Just because you have one clean EEG with no abnormal brain activity or seizure activity, you need to do another one prior to puberty. That's one of the most common calls we get with teens on the spectrum, is they are often experiencing a seizure for what their family thinks is the first time. And the third thing is, you're gonna have a teenager, so you're really gonna have to kick it up a notch on those life skills, social skills, and getting your kid ready to be that teenager they need to be. So if you're doing that baby thing, and I know you are, where you're maybe making their lunches or helping them with laundry, we need to start bouncing some chores over to those kids. And we also need to increase social environments where they can be successful. So think about it. We've got 3 really important things that we need to look at. Puberty is a very serious issue, and we take it very seriously. So make sure you have all of your therapeutics, medical, and dietary interventions in place. Consider to do another 24-hour EEG with your physician prior to puberty. And the third most important thing, get ready to raise the bar. Your job is to really get them ready for life. And I know you can do it.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We have joining us via Skype the fabulous and our semi-regular Vince Redmond, who is monthly regular. Vince Redmond is with us. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist, but also he has extensive experience working with individuals on the spectrum. He was in the trenches doing ABA years ago. In fact, he is featured on the film Recovered, which if you haven't seen, you should see, and you'll see Vince significantly younger, right? Working with kids on the spectrum. So Vince, thank you so much for being here with us. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you being here and appreciate your expertise in both of these areas. It's such, it just gives me so much hope, Vince, that there is somebody who actually gets it.
Yeah, that can put the whole picture together,
yeah,
so to
that's
speak.
so rare.
Really
so
important.
We love you as a resource.
Yeah.
And just wanted to also comment just real quick, Shannon, on the email that you sent me earlier in the week, just that word's getting around. Families are hearing about what CARD's doing for the families and what we're doing, to help the family unit. And the more we can continue to spread that and give as much hope to the families, the better.
It's a powerful, powerful thing that is available now for the CARD families, that they have access to you. I'm incredibly grateful. All I can say is I only wish that we had had that ability when I had a son who was in CARD, but I'm so grateful that families have you now.
And I have to say that Wyatt still has a CARD program, and our supervisors do regular parent training with us and talking about issues and talking about, we're really troubleshooting and giving us really concrete solutions. So it's been very helpful to us, Vince, to have this program.
Good.
Let's, before we introduced you before the break, we said we're going to talk about the concept of having fun. Now, very important in life to have fun, very important in life to have humor, to have, because otherwise how do we bear it? I mean, literally, how do we bear it? So the first question, I guess, is it possible to have fun while having a child in an intensive ABA program?
Of course. Of course. Yeah. I mean, and this is part of the stuff that we talk about our early family support services as well. There's a lot, and you kind of touched on it a little bit with your guys' intro. And when a family's first diagnosed, there's a lot of overwhelm, a lot of grief, a lot of loss, a lot of very depressed and very overwhelming feelings. And then we come in with a barrage of of information and services and support, and it can be extremely overwhelming, where all you want to do is just pull the blanket over your head and hope the day just gets through.
Oh, thank you, Vince, for saying that. Thank you, Vince, for saying that, because I've had so many mornings where I just want to go back into that bed and pull those covers over my head. Thank you for acknowledging that.
Yes.
Right, and it's hard to see the fun through the blanket. It is. And what we want to do, and we want, and what both you ladies do wonderfully, is showing families hope and faith and their abilities, that we can, as a family together, everyone working together to bring back some of that joy, bring some back, that hope, those good times, those happiness. And like you said, summer is the number one time that we try to do this with our families. And now that that's approaching, I think it's time we, slowly lower the blanket and look at some of the things that we can do to have fun. And I think when we think about that, we have to start with very small steps. We don't want to think the big Disney World, Hawaii, big trips, things of that nature, which can be extremely overwhelming. We want to start with small steps. Just start bringing some of that strength, that confidence, that fun back, so then we can, look at bigger and better travels.
And Vince, this is all great, but I also think that sometimes our families think it's all or nothing. Well, if I'm doing an intensive ABA program, then, you know, those sessions are important, and that means we don't schedule any time to go to vacation, and they look at it as a black and white. And then other families go, well, we have to have a vacation, which means we're canceling therapy for that week. And I think that black and white thinking sometimes digs us a hole that we can't get out of. What do you recommend? Because we shouldn't be canceling sessions, right?
Well, right. And I think up front, and that's an extremely good point, and it really follows right what I was saying with taking steps. Doing things on the weekend, doing things with the therapist, going out to the parks, to the water parks, to, you know, the beaches, to, amusement parks that might be, local, those types of things where you can actually bring a therapist that they can work on generalization of skills. They can work on language. They can work on how to manage behaviors in different environments, anxiety producing or exciting environments. We can also work on parent training, how to deal with a tantrum in public, how to work with the selective diet with amusement park food. I mean, there's lots of things that we can do while we're having fun. It's not as black and white as many may think, where it's locked in our house doing therapy or going out into public by ourselves. We can blend the two together and have a really enjoyable experience for everyone.
It's so powerful. I don't know about you, but we used to go to museums, and we would take a therapist with us to a museum, and it made it possible. I don't think we could have done it otherwise. And you know what it did? It made my child love going to a museum, and I love going with him, and that's carried over into now.
Wonderful.
He loves that. But I will tell you that if it was just me and my husband going to a museum with our child, it would have been a nightmare.
Right.
But because a therapist came and helped us to figure out how to do it with him and make it reinforcing for him, it really has made him a lifelong museum goer.
Right. I agree. Now, there was something you had said about, not canceling therapy. It's okay to take a week off your therapy schedule to take a vacation. It is okay to do that. And I think we encourage that, don't we, Vince, to kind of give everybody a little break in the summer. I mean, I know, CARD is always like, when would you like to schedule your summer vacation if you'd like to take a week? Yes. And they encourage that to do so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it also depends on where you are in the treatment as well.
Yes.
If we're very early on and we had just started, maybe, taking a vacation early on wouldn't be our clinical recommendation. But I think what you're touching on, Nancy, is everyone needs a break. The child needs a break. Family needs a break. CARD needs a break. And sometimes it's good to have that refresher, step back for a few days, see how the skills are generalizing. How are you guys as a family working together with the current interventions, current targets? And then when we come back together, we have a lot of data, a lot of good information, as well as a lot of good experiences to build upon.
Right. And I want to just also caution from my experience that if you do go on that vacation and you have some problem behaviors, do not beat yourself up. What you're learning is some of the things that maybe have not generalized from your therapy, some of the things that you have not maybe been given the adequate tools or developed as a parent, and then when you go back, you can work on those things with your team.
And Vince, don't you think it'd be a good idea, if you're going to take that week off, to talk about what strategies. Maybe take a little bit more time in the therapy the week before for parent training about strategies of what to do so that you're upholding the consequence strategies that you were doing in your therapy?
Absolutely. Yeah. Planning ahead with your team and with your supervisor is a great idea, because this way then you can prepare, as Nancy's saying, you can't prepare for everything, and there's going to be things that happen. But you can prepare for, the trip, where you're going, what types of events you'll be doing. We can give as many helpful hints, advanced role playing, things of that nature that we can do, so that if those incidents or an event happens, the family and, any other caretaker or sibling will be, more ready to appropriately deal with it.
Set yourself up for success. Yeah. And to touch on Nancy's point too, not handling something is just as important as handling it correctly, right? We get a lot of information, we get a lot of, learning experience when we're trying to deal with a situation and it doesn't happen the way we wanted it to happen. So if there's a behavioral episode and we try
to follow the behavior plan, and the family was unsuccessful and they had to resort to something else. That's good information, because that's stuff we can work on, or an adaptation we need to make to the behavior intervention plan. It's all, you know, in when we change our point of view of not looking at it as a failure as much as looking at it as a learning opportunity, I think that helps both families and clinicians.
There goes that perspective taking again.
Yeah.
Not looking at it as a failure. And the one thing I also urge families to do is when an incident happens where you do have a problem behavior, write it down right away and try to write down, you know, what the antecedent, what happened prior to that, because your team will then be able to really learn a lot from that experience. I've learned to write it down right at that point, or even text, email, my supervisor to say, this happened, I want you to be aware of it, we will deal with it when we get back, but just want you to know.
Right. And I think the parents taking kind of a supervisory approach that way, right?
Yeah.
It's looking at it from a behavioral perspective and giving it back to their clinical team as well, so that we all work together. And I always empower the families, anytime I speak with them, and let them know, you are a supervisor just as much as I'm a supervisor to the program. You guys, every parent has a set of skills and information that we will never have. And we need that information. We need those experiences. We need those times at the amusement parks or the museums or wherever they may go, just as much as they need our ABA knowledge. And to use that synergy between the two is nothing but going to make the program stronger for the child.
And thank you for that, Vince, because I do think that's one of the remarkable things about CARD is that you welcome and encourage and expect that the parents are a part of the team, not separate.
Right.
And that, I think that's key to the success that CARD has with their clients, and I appreciated it as a parent.
Oh, definitely.
Nothing tears my ticket worse at school is when they make some sort of plan and I'm left completely out of it, and then they hear it from me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been in those parent conference meetings myself.
Yes, I'm sure you have.
Let's go back to this concept of fun, and Vince, how can we find something that's fun for the whole family?
Yeah,
what are some keys
That's one of the
to doing
hardest
that?
things. Everybody has an expectation of what they want to do, and making it fit for everybody so stinking hard.
Yeah, and as we know, there's nothing that fits all, right? There's no one size fits all. But I think the one thing that oftentimes families are doing is they're overlooking. And this might sound bad, but it's overlooking the obvious. There's a lot of stuff within our just regular, local, very familiar communities of things that we're not taking part on, right? When we think of vacations and summers, like I said, I think we go into real quick, more elaborate, more expensive, more vacation type of things, rather than going to local parks, going to local beaches, going to a lot of street fairs, going to water park. I mean, there's a lot of just museums, nice and quiet, air conditioned, local pools if you don't have a pool. I mean, there's a lot of local experiences that we take for granted that I think a lot of families, when we look at it and and like you're saying, we can actually schedule it, talk about it, prepare for it, see how that would benefit the family. I think we need to, a lot of families need to take more advantage of what's in their local communities, because there's a lot of things that I think we oversee that when we tap into that, we see that it's fun for the family, it's easy to get to, it's easy to manage, and that reduces the stress and anxiety in the family, so that they don't have to think more of the big stuff. They can think of, I can go to the park for a couple hours, or I can go to the car wash for a little bit, going through those little car washes.
Oh, yeah. Wyatt loves the car wash.
Jem loved the car wash.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful point. That sometimes it can be that small, but having fun.
Right. And then the other thing that I wanted to say that can often help, and this is, in my case with Wyatt and Shannon's son Jem, we've done some outings together now with the two boys together. And Wyatt really looks forward with it because he knows he's going to be with Jem. And Wyatt may not want to go on the roller coaster, but Jem will go on the roller coaster, and Wyatt and Jem will ride the train with Wyatt. But we figure out ways that they can do their own thing but come back together, and then we have each other as support for parents, right? So reach out to others in your autism circle to do outings with them as well.
Or families that are, because there are some people that will be accepting, and that's the next thing I want to talk about is inclusion.
Okay.
There are some people who will let your child be and accept them, and then there are other people who aren't. And I loved, we went to an amusement park together, and I I'm always nervous when we go with somebody else because I'm like, oh, what if, Jem's going to want to do this, and what if they're not going to be go with the flow? And Nancy was so go with the flow.
Are you kidding?
And at one point you said that to us. You were like, oh my gosh, this is so great being here, because we were accepting of where Wyatt was on that moment in time. But it's hard. How do we model and encourage inclusion? Because it's so important when we're vacationing and trying to create fun for everybody to be included.
Right, and it kind of touches on what we were talking about before, getting out of the house, right? The first step is just starting with small goals, getting out, getting the kids into the environment, getting the families into the environment as a unit in a very controlled, manageable situation. Again, local parks or museums or, even just a restaurant, going to dinners, in building upon that, and then building to maybe a bigger event, and then maybe to an event that's going to involve more people, maybe some peers or maybe sibling peers, or maybe someone from a social group or the card community. I think it's starting small in working on inclusion is just as important for the child as it is for the family. And I think this is what you guys were alluding to as well. The comfort level for the family is just as important. So just throwing it out into big events or throwing them out into events in which are already going to be stressful is probably not our best idea to start with. Start with small environments, small trips, small, social dates, maybe one-to-one, like you guys are doing, and then build upon that and build to another situation and build to a new environment. It doesn't have to start big. It's much more manageable and successful if we start small and work our way up to bigger events. Our comfort level is just as important.
Now, I have a lot of specifics on this. I'm wondering, do we want to cover this next month, maybe? Some things specifically about travel and, airplanes and coping mechanisms. What do you think, Vince, if we continue to discuss this topic? Because airplanes can be a big deal for families.
Right.
And, especially a long flight. And I have to say that probably one of my worst experiences ever, that is forever burned in my brain, is a flight where, connecting flight we had to take from visiting my parents at the beach in North Carolina. And it was an hour flight that Wyatt had a tantrum the entire flight. And it took me and someone else to hold him down. So without going into that too much, and now we've done better with the flying. We've gotten some strategies to help us that, I'd be happy to share, and I'm sure you have lots of them. But things like traveling, airplanes, hotels, food accommodations. I think there's more here we could talk about.
Oh yes, and the level of, because our kids are across a vast spectrum. Jem now is a frequent flyer and does very well. But one of the last times we flew, for some reason, I think somebody had said to him and my family before we got on a plane to come home, they said, "Now make sure when you go to the airport you don't talk about bombs." And right. And then, so that's firmly planted in Jem's head. We get to the airport, and he's like, very loudly, "Why am I not supposed to talk about bombs? What am I not supposed to say about bombs?" And I was like, stop!
Yeah.
And how you get a kid who can get stuck in an obsession to edit something like that. I mean, we've heard
if they don't talk about bombs, don't bring it up.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've heard of kids who have been nervous on the plane, who've been kicked off for saying things like, "The plane's going to crash. The plane's going to crash."
So maybe some coping mechanisms. So I think the airplane thing, or any long-term travel is something we should talk about maybe next month. The other thing is that I I'm going to a family reunion this summer where Wyatt will be meeting we're going to North Carolina, and he's going to be meeting many cousins and, you know, all kinds of relatives he's never met. They may never have been exposed to autism. Who knows what the food's going to be? Who knows? We're going to be staying in different hotels and traveling, and I'm going to have some selfish, self-centered questions for you about that.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and they serve the greater good. Because I want to hear, Vince, some things about coping mechanisms for the moms, because we're always the people who are packing, and by the time we get on the plane, we're exhausted, and we've set ourselves up for a nervous breakdown.
Right. Yeah. I remember when Wyatt went to outdoor camp this year for the first time, and you know, I showed up that morning and all the other moms had just stuffed some, you know, sweatshirts into a sleeping bag, and I had the cooler with the GFC of food and the this and the that and the supplements that took me, you know, it took me a week to get ready for the trip.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be some strategies there for de-stressing. And then there was another incident burned in my brain, which was we were at the beach with my parents, and he kind of just started off down the beach. Well, that became a full-blown elopement, and 2 miles later, I'm a marathoner former, running after him 2 miles, literally, until I got him. Some fisherman had caught him and made him sit down, and he goes, "Here's your mama. She's going to be mad at you." Ooh.
So we need some therapy.
Smiling and giggling the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, he was giggling, looking over his shoulder. I could not catch him for the life of me.
Well, and please, if it had been me, it would have been all over. But because I would have jogged 2 steps and said, "Help." But Vince, obviously, we need some therapy.
We all need help, right? I mean, and the whole idea is that the three of us and many of the other professionals that we work with, we're here to help in any way. It be reduce our anxiety, reduce our fears, increase our preparation, increase our level of confidence, and then when we get into those situations, we feel better to be able to deal with them rather than, oh hell, I hope this works.
Right.
What we really want to do, I mean, a lot of it is just where our confidence lies, because the kids, as we know, play off of our confidence as well. If they see fear or, a trepidation in our looks, they take advantage of it.
Yes, they do. The sweet little buggers, they do. Well, Vince, we appreciate you more than you could possibly ever know. I'm so grateful that you are in this field and working with us and willing to give us a little bit of your time every month.
Yes, and so let's do that next month. For all of you parents out there listening, if you have specific questions about travel, be it getting on the airplane, how some coping mechanisms and a system to help you with that, be it, being on the beach and fears about elopement or your child going into the water or that, any of these things, special diet, how we can prepare for that.
Long car ride, whatever it is.
Letting people know your child is, special needs. So maybe when you first sit down at a restaurant or whatever, I always find, or a family reunion, I always find, to me, honesty is the best policy. Say, I need some crayons right now and some tortilla chips right now,
There you go. So Vince, you'll help us with all that in the month of July? Okay, fabulous.
Yeah, any questions along the way? I know a month is a long time and summer's just started. We will field the questions and answer them as soon as we get them.
Okay.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you so much for being here.
All right,
we'll
guys,
see you next month.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, have a great rest of the week.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Again, guys.
Okay, great. He's so wonderful.
He is.
Just adore him.
And clearly, we all have many stories of family vacations gone awry.
Oh, my goodness. Even we went to Legoland on Saturday, and there was at least one point when I wanted to burst into tears. Just I am one of those moms that, the packing of things and having to put things in the bag, and the two of them are standing there talking to me, and we're in the water park, and, did I bring the goggles? And I was like, somebody kill me now.
I know.
That's what I was saying. But we ended up having fun.
Yeah. Well, you gotta forgive yourself. You gotta get through things. You gotta forget really quickly the negative, and then just move on into refocus, as they say.
Exactly. Reboot and refocus. Anyway, we're gonna take a break and we're gonna come back. We got a lot of in the news stories for you, so stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them.
Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
And we're back with Let's Talk Autism, and it's time for In the News. There's been so much going on, and you've covered some of these things other days of the show.
Yeah, but we wanted to talk about it with you here because I think both of us were devastated. The young Eric Ortiz, who went on a field trip last Wednesday and ended up dead because he drowned in a pool. Absolutely so dismaying, and I did touch on it yesterday briefly, but we wanted to talk about it with you here because as moms, this is beyond belief.
It's beyond belief, and it's very similar to my feelings about Avante, which happened in New York, which there still seems to be no... I know there's Avante's law that they're trying to enact, but there's no real... They've closed that case in terms of what may have happened to him, even though body parts washed up from the East River. We don't know whether there was foul play. We don't know what happened.
No.
And the fact that there's not outrage... And I'm not going to go so far as to say that if a typical child disappeared and something like this happened, there wouldn't be complete and utter national outrage. But I do think there would.
Yeah.
I guess I will go so far as to say that. Yeah. And this, to me, typifies the kinds of families we help at ACT Today. Yeah. This is a special needs student who...
his mother had to fight to get a one-on-one aid.
Had to fight to get a one-on-one aid when he clearly needed it. And how in the world did a 16-year-old fully clothed boy with a one-on-one aid end up drowning in a pool?
That had a lifeguard. This is where I go a little bit like, okay, first of all, there was a one-on-one aide whose single job was to watch this young man, and somehow that didn't happen. And he, according to the description, he went into the pool fully clothed, came up once, then went down to the bottom of the pool, and by the time they got him up, he was drowned and they worked on him. But the lifeguard was there too. So there were people in the pool. I thought it was a pool that wasn't being attended, but it wasn't. There were people there, there were people everywhere, and everybody is saying they don't know what happened except for the fact that he came up once, took a gasp of air, and then went to the bottom and drowned. It is an epic, epic failure.
Why would the aide let him into the pool fully clothed? That just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't think he did. According to what we've been hearing, the aide was nowhere around, which, you know, that's my first thing. How did that happen?
Well, you know, the mother said that that was his one job. Where was he? Yeah. The sister said, my brother couldn't even go to the bathroom alone. The assistant had to go with him. They're very concerned in how it was handled after the drowning. The mother was not called until Eric was in the ambulance.
Right.
Now, this was a mom that was all over that school. She was there every day. She took time to know that every single teacher he had was aware of his issues. Epic failure. We need epic answers.
Well, and I just want to say that LAUSD issued a statement, and their statement was, the district extends heartfelt condolences to the family on its tragic loss. The district will continue to cooperate with the ongoing law enforcement investigation. Crisis counselors are on site to help the school community. We will have no further comment at this time.
And the family wants justice. The family does not want condolences from LAUSD. And I do want to add that they need donations for this young man's funeral.
Yes.
You know, the fact that a family needs help in paying for their son to be buried after such negligence, please, if you wish to donate to the Bank of America account, this might be too much to give in one. Can we put this on the website, maybe?
We'll put it on the Facebook, but there is an account number with a routing number.
If you want to get it right now, if you have a pen, the account number is 3250-4062-9139. The routing number is 121000350.
And we will put that on Facebook. I will get that up during the next break.
Okay.
Okay, so, and as if, you know, I mean, and that tops everything.
It tops everything. Nothing will bring Eric back.
Absolutely. But there are yet more stories in the news of how our kids are discriminated against. This one particularly took my breath away. Mean-Spirited Award, you guys may have heard of this. Fifth grader. My son's in fifth grade. 11-year-old. You know, so, and they just had awards in my son's school. And the teacher, she had these wonderful, they look like little Oscar things, and she asked at the open house what the parents felt that the child should get an award in. And then she weighed in on it too, and each kid was, and there were like 5 categories, like language arts, math, art, visual arts, these sports, these kinds of things that you could choose from, right? Reasonable things that you want to give an award at school. But for this young man, Dennis Haar, his teacher and some other teachers got together and they decided that they would have different kinds of awards. And for this 11-year-old who is on the spectrum, they decided to give him the Most Gullible and Drama King Award. On what planet do we think that builds self-esteem and helps work towards education?
Or teaches children in the classroom compassion and inclusiveness. Yeah.
On what planet? Seriously, like, why would you think that was a good idea?
Well, you know, it's nice to know that the school told the local news that they were planned by a small group of teachers, and after the complaints, the superintendent did away with the awards. Gee, good idea, superintendent.
Yeah, I got an award for them.
No apology was given
and they
yet.
need an apology. They absolutely
need a lot more than an apology.
Okay, another story that came out in the news this week about a series of genes, and of course this is very technical, but what we have come to understand genetically, and we had a brilliant geneticist from the Simons Foundation on with us yesterday. She just did a TED Talk. Brilliant geneticist.
And it didn't go woohoo right over your head?
Well, I had Dr. Tarbox here with me so that it wouldn't go completely over my head. In all honesty. But in any case, and I don't want to get too technical with this, but a study was done by Hako Narson and colleagues, and it appeared in the Nature Communications journal, and it's about a series of genes. They found a series of genes that seem to be connected to autism, ADHD, and schizophrenia. And what they're really interested in looking at these different genes and how they affect the brain so that they can hopefully come up with a medicine that will mitigate. And what I thought was particularly interesting, they investigated up to, and what they found was the suggestion of 400 distinct forms of autism spectrum disorder. We keep talking about needing to phenotype, and yesterday the geneticist and Dr. Tarbox were talking about how there are all these, they have found the possibility of 400 distinct types of autism spectrum disorder. Now, if we can get to the point where we can segment those out and see what is effective, that is when you are going to see a huge jump, ladies and gentlemen, in what happens in the treatment of autism.
Okay, so in the treatment of autism, after the child child is diagnosed and has autism?
Yes.
Okay,
After-
not just a preventative thing.
Absolutely,
prenatal and-
absolutely, and but also potential for beforehand as well. They had 6,700 patients with ASD and over 12,500 control subjects for this study. It's the largest study of copy number variations, and they call those CNVs. So CNVs are deletions or duplications of DNA sequences, and they're very distinct. It's kind of the stuff that Wendy Chung was talking with us yesterday, the geneticist. And so then they found these 3 genes clumped together, which they call a defective gene family interaction, or GFINs, okay? And they have a biological pathway. In patients with autism, the team found 3 very specific GFINs in which gene variations perturb how genes interact with proteins.
Okay.
We keep coming back to the proteins.
Protein, very important.
Of special interest to the study group was the metabotropic glutamate receptor.
I hear that a lot too.
So MGLUR. We're finding this in so many different things, and in another study we're going to talk about in a second. Okay, so they found that affects the neurotransmitter. So in particular, they reported that about 10% or more of ADHD patients have this CNV.
Okay.
And along with a glutamate receptor metabolic, a GRM. Now I'm getting too far down that. But anyway, based on the findings, they really feel that they might be able to find a drug. And the quote is, if drugs affecting this pathway prove successful on the ADHD patients, that then they're going to be able to test them on the patients with autism and with schizophrenia. And they have great hope that that will be the case.
Do we know how far out this might be?
We don't, but it doesn't sound like it's that far out. They're starting the study right now with the ADHD kids.
Okay, great.
So the 3 gene families, listen to this, they had 3 notable function roles. There's one that's called the CALM1 network, includes a family of proteins which regulate cell signaling and neurotransmitter function. There's another one that's involved in cancer development, because they're starting to see that there is the potential for autism and cancer to play a role together. So beyond what we're concerned about for our kids with autism, we need them to find this answer
for cancer.
And finally, the third one affects nerve transmission, which interconnects the brain and allows for processing.
Okay.
And he goes on to say that even though our study was large, it captures only about 20% of the genes causing, so these 3 are only 20% of what's causing ASD, who added that still larger studies are needed to further unravel the genetic landscape of autism. However, strong animal data supports an important role for the glutamate receptor pathway in socially impaired behaviors that are like ASD. And because that pathway seems to be a major driver in these 3 diseases, that glutamate that we're talking about, autism, ADHD, and schizophrenia, there's a compelling rationale for investigating treatment strategies focused on this pathway.
That's great.
So we're going to hear more about glutamate.
Is there anything that you gleaned from this that talks about environmental triggers combined with these genetic?
Well, one of the things that when Wendy Chung was with us yesterday, she was saying that one of the things that she's very interested in is that they're looking at these genetic mutations, if you will, because I always think of genetics as being hereditary.
Right.
And we know that hereditary plays a role in autism,
Right.
but what she's finding is that a lot of these kids, when they find the gene that has the mutation, they're the first one in their family that has it, which is suggesting that something in the environment is changing,
so
mutating that
that's
gene.
what's known as epigenetics, when environment alters genes.
Absolutely.
Which can happen. Okay.
And we've got a study a little bit later on talking about something that is showing very clearly in a series of studies that is altering those genes and causing inflammation in the brain, which can cause these things. So we'll get to that one. But first, you wanted to talk about the cost of autism.
The cost of autism. Now, we've heard a lot about this. I've been collecting articles on this for a particular situation my family's facing to just show hardship and how difficult, and combine that with cancer, which my husband has had for 20 years off and on. It can really devastate your family, but financially, we're not just talking about the emotional. Everybody that watches this show knows the high cost, but this is really spelling it out. Autism costs $2.4 million over an individual's lifetime. lifetime. That is approximately $1 million more than raising an average. The lifetime cost to support an individual without an intellectual disability. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry.
It's significant because it's $241,000 for the average family to raise a child.
So it's a heck of a lot more.
Heck of a lot more.
$241,000 to raise an average child. To raise a child with autism without an intellectual disability in the U.S. is $1.4 million.
Yeah.
But autism plus an intellectual disability is $2.4 million. So if you've got cognitive delays, which, let's face it, cognitive delays can happen when a child has autism because they cannot access learning. So, you know, is that the cart before the horse, chicken before the egg, right? So cognitive delays are common with children with autism because of the fact that the behaviors interfere. So $2.4 million for a child with autism with cognitive delays, $1.4 million with autism without the intellectual disability, and only $241,000 to raise a child without any issues.
And those are averages. Those are averages. So absolutely amazing. We're running out of time, but new study talking about air pollution, that it has the ability that children who, especially in their first 3 years of life, who are close to something like a highway, both of our kids, that it causes inflammation. They're looking at mice studies, but seeing that even a small amount of it over a small amount of time when they're very young can cause inflammation in the brain, which can mutate genes.
We're right near the freeway.
We were too when he was younger. And then the last thing, this is good news, right? We're giving you a bunch of news, but the United States Supreme Court about a week and a half ago issued, and it didn't have anything to do with autism, but they issued a statement on something, and in the second page, it was buried, so we just now have found it. They said the court will now call this intellectual disability instead of mental retardation.
Thank you.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's a thing whose time had come.
Time had come.
And they called it into attention and said, this is when we will start to do this. We're all out of time, which is unbelievable. But I want to remind you that tomorrow we have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox back. You guys have some questions from yesterday still. He'll be here tomorrow. We've got some exciting things. We might have a special guest for you tomorrow. So appreciate you being here.
Love being here.
Please join us tomorrow. And until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.